Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. We are Millennial Mom. If you don't know who is who, I'm Millennial. This is Mom. Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, I'm Mom or Kay from Millennial Mom, and today we're going to talk about Married at First Sight cast tell-all because hey, I guess they need to do another filler show before we see the Married at First Sight season 16 Nashville reunion part 1 and 2, which will be out next week by the way, and will be 2 parts, so we still have another 2 weeks to go for Married at First Sight Nashville. But on tonight's show, we have a tell-all with a catch-up with different cast members with host Monique Kelly. We have Shawnice and Jepti, Tristan, that was from the Married at First Sight Dallas. We also have Lindsay from Married at First Sight Boston with Mark the Shark. Kristen, who is with Mitch from Married at First Sight San Diego. Mindy, who is with Zach from Married at First Sight DC. Henry with Christina from Married at First Sight New Orleans, and Steve, who is with Noy from Married at First Sight Boston. The former castmates are asked many questions by Monique Kelly, and Monique said that she's a dating expert. Now, I personally don't know who she is, but I do believe I've seen her on the show before with, you know, when others Married at First Sight comes on, like the people who say yes, they may stay married or they may get divorced. I think she was on a show like that with Kevin. So again, if you're familiar with her, that's fine, but I'm not necessarily. But she's there to ask the questions because again, Married at First Sight Nashville hasn't wrapped up yet. So the questions asked the castmates are, what are they up to now? Where are they living? And if they're dating, who, what, when, where, and why? So Kristen from Married at First Sight San Diego said that she's dating, yes, but you know, there's things going on with her and Mitch that her and Mitch are still technically married, and she hasn't talked to Mitch in 4 months. Now, let me just jump back just a little bit backward. I was a little ahead of myself really quick. Also, too, the cast was asked about Married at First Sight Nashville, like what do they think about the couples that was on this season. Now, Kristen also starts off, because Kristen's a little bit of a talker. She was on her season, and she was tonight on the show, okay? Kristen says that Married at First Sight Nashville was a hot mess. All the couples, except Chris and Nicole, gave up. Tristan said they all gave up, and there was also a lot of finger pointing. Lindsay put her 2 cents in, as usual, when she was on her show too, right? And said that she didn't like McKinley. She felt like McKinley was here for the reality show vibes, like maybe his 15 minutes of fame. And she didn't like the fact that McKinley and Gina were dating. The next question was if anyone was still in contact with their former spouse. This is where Kristen said that she was, and that her and Mitch were technically still married, even, you know, they've been off the show for quite some time. She said that Mitch reached out to her because he needed help to fill out those divorce papers. I'm like, really? He needed help to fill out divorce papers? But whatever, I guess each his own. Maybe Mitch is still trying to holler at her or something, you know, because I think at their reunion, he kind of like left the door open, but Kristen closed that door like she should have because he wasn't attracted to her from the get-go. Lindsay said that Mark reached out to her 2 days prior to the taping of this cast tell-all. Lindsay says she don't know why because listen, when she's done, she's done. And frankly, you know, only Lindsay and Mark know how true that is. But I can't see Mark reaching out. I mean, like for what? The way that Lindsay on their season talked about Mark, browbeat Mark, talked about his family, the heirlooms, the bed bugs, this and that. Oh yeah, it was a bunch of drama. All right, so the next question is, has anyone slid in the DMs? Here go Kristen again, starting out. She says there's been a few. She said that Ryan from Married at First Sight Houston reached out in her DMs. And also Mark and Lindsay, yeah, he reached out in the DMs too. Kristen said, but she's not looking for anyone to slide in her DMs. She's looking for a real life relationship and, you know, not something that she could just put her toe in the water for right now. She's looking for long term. So sliding her DMs isn't gonna get it. So then the cast is all out there. Everyone is out sitting on the sofa except Steve. So I guess Steve was a surprise guest, but how is he the surprise guest when I saw personally Steve in the commercial? So, I'm thinking like maybe one of the experts or maybe someone else from another cast was coming, but no, it was Steve. So he comes out, hey, he sits next to Mindy. And so Steve is asked how he's doing, everything like that as well, and if he's still in contact with his castmates and things, right, his castmates. And so Steve says, yes, he still talks to all the guys from the cast. He even invited them to a birthday party, and, they just all get along. Steve says he's also taking time, now that their show wrapped like over a year ago, he's taking time to step back, to heal, process everything, and move forward. But here goes Lindsay. Lindsay has to put her 2 cents in. She didn't just put her 2 cents in with this conversation. She put her 2 cents in a little bit too. But Lindsay says, you know what, Steve, you are a calculated liar, and I don't have time for you. So Steve is sitting back looking like, Lindsay, what are you talking about? Like on our season, if you felt like, I was doing something to you, and even after, I apologize, but really, like, you have to accept it. That was the base of what Steve was saying. And then they showed a clip at their reunion of Boston where Lindsay was sitting apologizing to Steve about, I guess, whatever Lindsay heard or how she felt, because, Lindsay was full of, it seemed like anxiety. Like one day she was up, one day she was down. Like you never knew what you were going to get from Lindsay. So I guess from that time, from the apology from the reunion until now to this tell-all, not sure how much time has passed, but is at least a year or maybe 2? Yeah, things clearly have changed, at least from Lindsay's perspective. Steve said, you know what? He just blocks out the bad things and is only focused on the good stuff. He says he even sees things on social media. And you know what? Social media is just that, social media. So here goes Lindsay again. She says, you know what? You need to keep your mouth shut to Steve and get a job and stop, living off of women. I'm like, is that the point of conversation? I do believe Monique asked Steve how he was doing, what he was up to. And then Lindsay just jumps right in, so who's with the 15 minutes of fame now, right? Seemed like it was Lindsay. Like she waited all this time to say whatever she had to say to Steve. And so then Mindy says how she met Steve. She said, you know what? I don't know what's going on with them, but it's a different experience that I'm having with Steve. I actually reached out to him, Mindy said, because I know he was in IT and data. And she said she switched her job career field to the data industry. And so she was making a LinkedIn profile and was like, hey, Steve, she reached out to him. So apparently she either reached out in messages or reached out in a DM. Either way, they're sitting side by side and they're figuring out where they're going to go, whether to make it be long-term or whatever. So they're dating. It's long distance, but they're dating. And they seem happy. Lindsay keeps saying that Steve is still a piece of trash. She said it's nothing against you, Mindy, but I'm like, even if it's nothing against Mindy, what is the animosity? I mean, is she upset that her, Steve, and Noy and all, maybe they had a pact on their show, or maybe something with Steve on the Married at First Sight Boston? Apparently, whatever happened. And Lindsay was in the mix with a lot of things. I mean, even with the couples outings on their season, Lindsay seemed to be like the Debbie Downer when it came to activities and, like, again, walking on eggshells for her. Well, guess what? I know some people are 50-50 with Lindsay. I know that, you either like her or you don't. But it's Lindsay's body language. It's how she just approaches conversation. It's like, boom, 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 her way, what she got to say, that's it. As if, can you imagine if she had like children, how she would talk to them? Because I remember Lindsay, I remember her dad saying to Steve at their wedding, at the reception, same thing, that in confessional, either he said it to Steve or he said in confessional, that Lindsay's a piece of work and she's used to getting her way. And then also, yeah, that proved to be true. And the dad also said, yeah, you're gonna have to, when Lindsay gets mad, you gotta reel her back in. Yeah. So Dad put that out there a while, on their season a while ago. And then also remember Lindsay saying before she got married that she didn't speak to her mother. So Lindsay clearly has issues from the childhood and married at first sight PTSD mixed with everything else that went on in her life that she didn't feel was right or was working against her. Anyways, so Lindsay, I guess things weren't going the way maybe she felt they would go, because Steve always came across like a laid back kind of guy. And he was like, it's just whatever, you accept what we went through, go through the process and move on, be healed, or, it just is what it is. So Lindsay gets up and she walks away. Now, where have we seen this before? Lindsay has done this on her own season. We have seen her walk away in many activities, go to the bathroom, talk smack about Mark, talk smack about whoever, and let that be that. But the host, Monique, you know what she did? She actually followed Lindsay to her dressing room, went in there, spoke to her, like pretty much telling her, listen, put your big girl panties on and come back out. This is not what you're here for. You're here to tell your story. You're here for you, your perspective, and I'm like, I don't know if I would have did that, because that is Lindsay's MO. And frankly, if she only came to bash Steve in the moment, what else is she bringing to the table? Well, apparently Steve had to go. I guess he had another engagement he had to go to, so he left the tell-all a little early. So when Lindsay comes back, Monique comes back, the cast has asked other questions as well. The cast has asked about how they feel about Mac and Gina dating. Was it a better than Mac and Dom? And the cast felt that Dom was a little bit immature and they didn't have a problem about Mac dating Gina. I mean, the only person who said they had a problem was Gina in very early on. Then they're asked about which one of the Married at First Sight season cast singles could be rematched or come back for another opportunity. And overwhelmingly, the names came up were Paige, from like Paige and Chris. Yeah, definitely, because Chris was on a whole different level. That took Married at First Sight to the moon, right? And also Mika. Shout out to Mika and Michael. Okay, Mika and Michael is millennials, one of our favorite couples still to this day to talk about. So Paige and Mika were the ones they felt would be the top two of the rematch. Then the couples are asked about fan stories. Kristen says that her ex-fiance, she saw him in a restaurant one time. Her ex-fiance, she was supposed to marry right before she came on the show, they broke up. He saw her, he turned, his face dropped, and he left the restaurant. So I guess he didn't want to see her. And then Tristan says that some of the moms slid into his DMs asking him to, look at, here's a picture of my daughter, see if you're interested or not. And Shawnee's saying how she got a message from a 14-year-old girl saying how she said, I like how you're being patient, and just giving her advice. And Shawnee's was like, oh, I feel honored that she reached out to me. But I think it should be like the other way around, that maybe the young lady who reached out to you at the time felt like you were a possible role model for her. So I guess, I can see Shawnee's point. I think maybe she said it wrong, or maybe I took what she was saying the wrong way. Maybe I didn't perceive it correctly. Anyways, other questions came up about how long did it take to go on a date. Henry said it took him a few months. He said he actually met his now girlfriend at his friend's wedding, and yes, he consummated the marriage. Unlike, he threw a little shade to me, like unlike when he was with Christina, but I get it because Christina was also out there. Okay. Kristen says that she's been on a few dates after the show, but nothing serious, and she would like to be remarried again one day. She said, and if she does get someone who's serious, she would rather them not know that she was on the show, or rather them not watch her being on the show. Tristan says that this experience showed him what he wanted versus what he needed, and he said he met his wife, his now current wife, after 6 months of dating. Zach and Mindy, is it Zach and Mindy? Not Zach and Mindy. Mindy said, she went into the thing with Steve. She said that she was excited about dating Steve, and she said a lot of messages are positive, but she also said there's a lot of messages that say, oh, so you two are still trying to get your 15 minutes of fame. I'm like, 15 minutes of fame? Mindy's season was so long ago, at least 4 or 5 years ago. So this is definitely not 15 minutes of fame. I mean, unless some of the messages maybe came from Lindsay. I mean, especially the way she was acting and the way she kept bringing up 15 minutes of fame. Okay? So now the cast is asked, have they rewatched the season that they were on? Shanice and Jeopardy said that they rewatched the season and they were fighting like cats and dogs. She said that her family actually watched her cry and, didn't understand what was really going on behind the scenes. And you know what? Shanice and Jeopardy, they have been together 6 years. They said yes, but during their season, I mean, at the honeymoon, there was a lot that went on at the honeymoon and a lot that went on that we saw being filmed. Of course, there's things that we saw that weren't, things that happened that went on, I'm sure, that we didn't know behind the scenes that were filmed. But it didn't seem like they were gonna to match up, because maybe, I think it was like, from my point of view, from their season, it seemed like Jeopardy was the immature one, wasn't really ready to be married. But I believe he's the oldest, or the oldest son in his family, very traditional family. I think they're Haitian or Jamaican, something like that, from the islands. And, it's kind of like expected for him to get married. So I think maybe he felt he was doing it at first out of obligation. But turns out, again, they're still together. They have a beautiful young daughter. And they say they have changed along the way in the process. Lindsay says that she didn't fully watch her season. She said the damage was done by her castmates. Is Lindsay reflecting? Is Lindsay deflecting? It's always about someone else. It was always about Mark, and now it was about Steve, and now it's about the other castmates. I don't know. It's hard because it seemed like when Lindsay was talking, it just gave it's as if we were watching Married at First Sight Boston again. What was it, season 14? It just seemed like we were watching them over again, and it's just like, no, Lindsay. The common denominator seemed like is you. You're the one that seems like you always have a problem with something or someone. Yeah, it's probably you. It was just a lot of back and forth with Lindsay. Like I said, when she was talking to Steve, she just was really going in on him. And I just think that whatever happened on her season and her experiences are just really true to her experiences. So the cast members are asked about what happens behind the scenes with filming. They say it's a grueling process. It could take up to 8 hours or so to film. They were also asked if they got used to having intimate moments on camera. Shanice and Jeopardy said a lot of theirs didn't happen on camera. It happened off camera. But the couples, Shanice and Jeopardy and the other castmates said that sometimes you get used to having the cameras around and sometimes you forget. So, and then Kristen said that, there are cameras that roll 24/7, at least for her season, that were in the living room and the kitchen, but there's none in the bathroom or the bedroom, but they can still hear noises in the bedroom. She was like, just fun fact for you. So then conversation came up with Shanice and Jeopardy about them filming Happily Ever After when Shanice was pregnant with their daughter. Shanice said that her and Jeopardy were actually apart during that time. They were not together. They had been broken up for 4 months. She said that filming Happily Ever After helped them come together. She said actually a producer on the show said that something along the lines of, regardless of how you're doing in your relationship, you need to come together as far as this baby goes and learn how to co-parent. And so Shanice said she was just trying to cope and things were stressful, but she said that they grew back together in love, and that she said, and she was emotional about it, she definitely was reminiscing. She said she always knew that Jeopardy would be a great dad, but she wasn't sure at the time that he would be a great husband, and they're happy. They're happily married together right now. So now she has both. Then Monique asked the cast about any fights that they had while filming Married at First Sight that the viewer didn't see. Tristan described his fight with Mia leaving the apartment. There's all kinds of things with Tristan and Mia. I'm just gonna jump with Tristan's story real quick. The fight with Mia. Okay, listen. Mia got arrested at the airport before the honeymoon. Tristan described this later, but I'll just say it for you now. Tristan said that Mia had criminal charges of identity theft and something else, but they were the last ones to get on the plane for their honeymoon to Mexico. Tristan said that there was police that came up to him, thought they were smuggling her to Mexico. He was like, no, 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 no. So the fight that they had was clear they didn't go on that honeymoon. A couple scenes later, or maybe a week or so later, when she was trying to get her charges together and she swore them down, it wasn't her, but Tristan said that really it was, that she moved out. But he said that Mia moved out on her own. Okay, he just said that he had a sock and he kind of like tossed the sock, like, oh, Tristan throwing a sock at me. So that was a fight that they had behind the scenes, but we kind of saw that though, Tristan. Mindy said the scene with Zach at a restaurant. He was trying to say, well, you know what you did. You know what you did on the honeymoon. How come you don't know? I remember that scene. Yeah, Zach was trying to get Mindy to say that she did something wrong and Mindy didn't know, when the whole time Zach was messaging by text and calling Mindy's best friend from the wedding. So Zach was essentially cheating on Mindy with her friend that came out later on the show. So, and then Lindsay, of course, said all the scenes again with her were fights we didn't see, but they did show a clip of Lindsay telling Mark that, you know, she works 2 jobs and she started taking care of him and his mother, and just how Mark felt berated when she was saying like all these things to him. And you know, Lindsay couldn't see past that. She was like, but it's true though. Like, what else am I supposed to say, essentially? And then Kristen said that one of the fights they had behind the scenes was after they came back from the honeymoon. Kristen says that she's an oversharer. She says she called her mom and her sister about Mitch not being attracted to her, and that how they went to the room and Mitch pounced on her. So I guess he was trying to like have sex with her. And so the word got in through the family, and the family found out Mitch's Instagram and everything else and started DMing him and telling him some nasty things, and even said like, you better look out, the army's coming for you. So Kristen said like she even had to message her mom and be like, listen, who said they was gonna bring the army, you know? But yeah, so we heard a little bit about that fight, or whatever happened, especially him pouncing on her during the honeymoon. But the behind the scenes with the family, yeah, that was definitely new. And so then there was a clip of Tristan saying that he essentially doesn't like women darker than him. He said he's not remorseful about the clip. He said it was a 5-second clip that was taken out of context. He got so many rude things on social media, calling him a colorist and a racist. He said this even affected his family and his church life and his mother's church life. But he said that Pastor Cal asked him all kind of things. He said he likes women of all shapes and sizes, races and ethnicities, and that what he was trying to do was quote a pastor that said something like, what did he say? Some of the fact of you want to be equally yoked and someone who melts your butter. And so I guess that was kind of like spliced together, and it made it seem like, per Tristan's words, that it made it seem like he, you know, didn't like any light-skinned women. So that was a big to-do. And I actually remember all the backlash that Tristan had for that. But he said that's not true. He has now met his Beyonce. Now he has his platform. He wants the world to know that he loves everybody. He loves himself. He's not a racist or a colorist. And pretty much you love who you love, and he has a preference. And even the topic of preference came up on the show with Monique Kelly and Shawnee's saying, why is it okay for women to have a preference, but when a man has a preference, yeah, it seems to be a problem. And then they get into the cast asking like about the experts, like who's your favorite expert, or what's the best advice they gave you. One of the things that came up a lot was when Dr. Pepper says to fight fair. So a lot of cast members remember that. They also give Dr. Viviana her props for being dedicated and vigilant to the process on her time on the show. All the cast sung Pastor Cal's praises. They said he's a really cool guy and he listens, and he's really here to put you on the right path in your relationship with each other and with yourself. And then he also mentioned Dr. Jessica. Now, Dr. Jessica, you have to be old school with Married at First Sight. She was on, I believe, seasons like 1 through 3. maybe four would be pushing it. And she actually was the same type of expert where Dr. Viviana was, the sex expert and relationship like that area. And one of the reasons why she left the show is she actually met a cast member on the show and they ended up getting married. So, other than that, that's what they said. So really, Dr. Pepper for her advice, Pastor Cal for being, set you down and put you on the right path, and Dr. Viviana and Dr. Jessica for their dedication and diligence for, getting your sexual intimacy together. But one of the things they said, the main lesson or main, get to know your partner better thing that they didn't like is tantric yoga. Yeah, they say that's a no. That's a no-go. They didn't like that. They don't tantric yoga. They said they either yoga or have sex, not both. Now, to wrap up the show, the cast members are asked if they would recommend family or friends to marry a stranger, and it was a split decision. Some say yes, some say no. But one thing that was said by Shawnice that I appreciated is that she said, if you come on the show, make sure you come on the show with good intentions. Don't come on the show with other agendas, because otherwise the marriage more than likely will not work out for your favor. And don't take other people's lives away from them wanting to be married when you came on here for something else. Just come on here the right way. And I 100% agree, because it seems like a lot of people as of late have come on the show for another agenda. So I don't know, that's just my take on it. Well, that was the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Now, next week is Married at First Sight Reunion Part 1. So we will see what the Married at First Sight Nashville cast has been up to, and then we can roll to the next season. And also stay tuned on our channel for a sneak peek of the upcoming season. So thank you all again for watching. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, comment, and share. And until next time, everyone, live simply, be grateful.